Hello. The text message notification lit up my wife Sarah's phone at 12:17 a.m. I wouldn't have noticed except I was still awake, finishing some work on my laptop while she slept beside me. The message preview caught my eye. Mike. Boss, hey. Can you check those quarterly reports? My stomach tightened. This wasn't the first late-night text from her boss, and something about their increasing frequency had been nagging at me for weeks. Sarah had been working longer hours at her marketing firm, often coming home past 8 p.m. looking oddly energized despite the late hour. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give vague answers about client meetings and project deadlines. I glanced at her sleeping form, her breath steady and deep. After 7 years of marriage, I thought I knew every expression on her face, every habit, every tell. But lately, she'd become a stranger, password protecting her phone, taking calls in other rooms, and spending hours getting ready for work in the morning. The phone lit up again. Another message from Mike. The Henderson account needs attention ASAP. My heart pounding, I picked up her phone. I knew her password. She'd changed it recently, but I'd seen her type it in last week. 1-9-8-9, her birth year. The messages loaded, and my world stopped. Hundreds of texts between them going back months. Flirting, inside jokes, meeting arrangements disguised as work appointments, pictures. My hands shook as I scrolled through evidence of my wife's betrayal. The most recent exchange made me nauseous. Mike, miss you already. Today's lunch meeting was incredible. Sarah, you're making me blush, but we need to be more careful. Jason's been asking questions. Mike, he suspects nothing. You've got him wrapped around your finger. Sarah, true. He's so trusting it almost makes me feel bad. Almost. Winking face. I felt the rage building inside me, but I forced myself to think clearly. Sarah's phone was a goldmine of evidence, and I wasn't about to waste this opportunity. I opened their text thread and typed as her, "Hey, having trouble sleeping. Thinking about you. Can you talk?" The response came almost immediately. "For you? Always. Give me a minute to step outside so we don't wake Amanda." Amanda, his wife. The pieces clicked into place, the charity galas, the weekend conferences, the late-night strategy sessions. All lies. I remembered how Sarah had insisted on attending that marketing summit in Denver last month, how she'd said it would be good for her career. Now I knew what kind of networking she'd been doing. I spent the next hour playing my wife in their conversation, carefully extracting details about their affair. Mike was surprisingly forthcoming, reminiscing about their various rendezvous and making plans for future encounters. He even sent a shirtless photo which I saved for later use. The whole time, Sarah slept peacefully beside me, unaware that her carefully constructed house of lies was about to come crashing down. I had plans forming not just for Sarah, but for Mike too. His comfortable life with Amanda was about to get very uncomfortable indeed. But first, I needed more evidence. As I set her phone down, I noticed her laptop bag in the corner. Sarah always took it to work, but tonight she'd left it home. Another piece of luck. I quietly slipped out of bed, grabbed the laptop, and headed to my home office. Time to see what other secrets my dear wife had been keeping. Sarah's laptop password was the same as her phone's. She'd always been lazy about security. As soon as I logged in, notifications from her email started popping up. More messages from Mike, hidden in a folder labeled Project Archive. My wife might have been good at lying, but she was terrible at covering her tracks. The emails went deeper than the texts, revealing the full scope of their deception. They'd been planning a future together. There were links to real estate listings in Boston, where Mike was considering opening a new branch of the firm. Sarah had already started applying for positions there, preparing to tell me she'd been unexpectedly transferred. They'd even discussed how to handle the divorce Mike had recommended his friend's law firm. But what made my blood truly boil was an email thread about their anniversary. 3 months ago, while I was visiting my sick mother in Cleveland, they'd celebrated 6 months since their first encounter. Sarah had written, "Sometimes I wish I'd met you before Jason. He's a good man, but you make me feel alive in ways he never could." Mike's response was typical corporate sleaze. Good men finish last. Baby. That's why you're with a real man now. Face blowing a kiss. I found myself wondering about Amanda, Mike's wife. Did she have any idea? According to their messages, she traveled frequently for her job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. The perfect cover for their afternoon meetings at the Westin downtown. I copied everything to a secure cloud drive, including their hotel receipts and photos that made me want to throw the laptop through a window. Then I noticed something odd in Sarah's calendar, recurring appointments with someone named Dr. Richardson every Tuesday at 2 p.m. I knew Sarah's doctor, and this wasn't her. A quick search revealed that Dr. Richardson was an OBGYN. The most recent appointment was marked 12-week check. The room started spinning. I checked the dates against their messages. The timeline matched perfectly with their Denver trip. Sarah was pregnant, and given the timing, there was no way it could be mine. We hadn't been intimate in months. Another red flag I'd ignored. I sat there in my dark office, letting the full weight of the betrayal crush me. Not only was my wife cheating, but she was carrying her lover's child while planning to leave me for him. The whole time, she'd been playing the role of devoted wife, kissing me goodbye each morning, asking about my day, even planning our upcoming anniversary vacation, which I now realized overlapped with her transfer timeline. A new email notification popped up. Mike again. Looking forward to tomorrow's lunch meeting. Smiling face with horns, I've booked our usual room. My hands steady now. I opened Sarah's work email and drafted a message to HR. I attached selected screenshots of their correspondence, careful to include only the most damning professional misconduct evidence. I saved it to drafts that would come later. First, I needed to contact Amanda. I found her on LinkedIn easily enough. She was beautiful, accomplished, and according to her recent posts, had just been promoted to regional sales director. She and Mike had appeared together at a charity gala last week. The same night Sarah had told me she was working late on the Henderson account. I crafted a message to Amanda from my personal email, then paused. Sending it now would spook Mike and Sarah. I needed them to proceed with tomorrow's lunch meeting as planned. I had something much better in mind. I spent the rest of the night preparing. By 6 a.m., I had compiled every shred of evidence into organized folders, backed up in multiple locations. I'd also found something interesting. Mike had been embezzling company funds to pay for their rendezvous. The hotel receipts were being filed as client entertainment expenses, and their romantic dinners were logged as business development. Classic mistake, mixing personal pleasure with corporate funds. Sarah's alarm went off at 6:30. I was already in the kitchen, making coffee like nothing was wrong. She came in wearing her favorite blue dress, the one I now knew Mike had bought her last month. "You're up early," she said, kissing my cheek. The casual intimacy of it made my stomach turn. "Big day at work," I replied, watching her fix her coffee, 3 sugars, just a splash of cream. How many mornings had we shared like this? How many had been real? "Me too," she smiled, checking her phone. "The Henderson account is really heating up." I wondered if she practiced these lies in the mirror. They came so smoothly now. "Speaking of work," I said, keeping my voice neutral, "how's the quarterly review coming along?" She didn't even flinch. "Oh, you know how it is. Mike's been pushing everyone hard to meet deadlines." "I bet he has," I thought, but said, "That must be why he was texting you at midnight." There, the tiniest pause in her movements, a slight tightening around her eyes. But she recovered quickly. "Was he?" "I was asleep. You know how he gets about projects." "Sure do." I handed her a travel mug. "Have a great day, honey." As soon as she left, I put my plan into motion. First stop, my lawyer's office. Richard had been my friend since college, and his face darkened as I laid out the evidence. The pregnancy complicated things, but the documentation of Sarah's infidelity and their planned deception would help ensure I wouldn't be paying for Mike's kid. Next, I drove to Sarah's firm and asked for a meeting with the CEO, claiming it was about potential investment opportunities. I'd done my homework. The company was seeking expansion capital, and my position in venture capital made me a credible prospect. They squeezed me in for 11:30. Perfect timing, since Sarah and Mike's lunch meeting was scheduled for 12:15. The CEO, Patricia Walsh, was a sharp woman in her 50s who'd built the company from scratch. She listened without interruption as I explained why I was really there, her expression growing stormier by the minute. The evidence of Mike's financial misconduct particularly interested her. "And they're together right now?" she asked, checking the time. "They will be in about 20 minutes, I replied. "At the Westin, room 1214. It's their usual spot, according to the expense reports." Patricia picked up her phone. "Stephen, cancel my lunch, and send security to meet me in the lobby." She looked at me. "Would you care to accompany me, Mr. Mitchell? I believe you've earned a front row seat." I declined politely. I had another stop to make, the Weston's bar, where Amanda was waiting to meet me. She'd responded to my message with remarkable composure, and we'd agreed it was time for both our spouses to face the consequences of their actions. What Sarah and Mike didn't know was that their cozy love nest was about to receive some unexpected visitors. Between Amanda, Patricia, and the private investigator I'd hired to document everything, their lunch meeting was going to be quite memorable. But first, I needed to make one more stop at the bank. Joint accounts don't empty themselves, after all. Amanda was already at the hotel bar when I arrived, elegant in a charcoal business suit that suggested she'd come from a meeting. The reality of meeting my wife's lover's wife struck me as we shook hands. How surreal that we were now accomplices in exposing our spouse's betrayal. "They just arrived," she said quietly, showing me her phone. She'd hired her own PI weeks ago, suspecting Mike's infidelity but needing proof for her own divorce proceedings. Together, of course. They didn't even try to be discreet. We watched the security feed her PI had accessed. Sarah and Mike walking close but not touching, taking the elevator to the 12th floor. So confident in their routine that they didn't even check for familiar faces in the lobby. "How are you holding up?" Amanda asked, stirring her untouched coffee. "Ready for this to end," I replied honestly. "You?" "Same. Though I have to admit, watching Patricia's security team heading up right now is satisfying." Right on cue, my phone buzzed, a text from Patricia. "In position. Corporate security and HR are documenting everything. Police are on standby if needed." I checked my watch. Sarah and Mike had been in their love nest for exactly 17 minutes. Long enough to be in a compromising position, not long enough to have finished their lunch meeting. Perfect timing. "Ready?" I asked Amanda. She stood, smoothing her suit. "After you." We took a different elevator up, meeting Patricia and her team in the hallway. For security officers, an HR representative frantically taking notes, and Patricia herself, who looked ready to breathe fire. "Mr. Mitchell," she acknowledged. "Mrs. Henderson. Shall we?" The hotel manager had provided a key card, given the circumstances. Patricia swiped it, waited for the green light, and pushed the door open. The scene that greeted us was exactly what you'd expect. Sarah and Mike, caught literally with their pants down, froze in horror as their carefully constructed world imploded. "Mike!" Amanda's voice could have frozen hell. "How nice to see you working so hard on the Henderson account." "Sarah." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. "Is this what they mean by working under the boss?" Mike scrambled for his clothes while Sarah clutched the sheets, her face cycling through shock, fear, and incredibly indignation. "Jason, what are you doing here? This isn't. Save it." I cut her off. "Though I am curious which lie you were planning to use. Late meeting? Team building exercise? Or were you going to tell me about your pregnancy today?" The color drained from her face. Mike, halfway into his pants, stumbled. "Pregnancy? Sarah, you're... Oh, she didn't tell you?" I smiled coldly. "Congratulations, Mike. I'm sure Amanda and your kids will be thrilled to hear about their new sibling." Patricia stepped forward, her heels clicking ominously on the hotel room floor. "Mr. Henderson, Ms. Mitchell, as of this moment, you are both suspended pending an investigation into gross professional misconduct and misuse of company resources." She turned to her security team. "Please escort Mr. Henderson from the premises." HR will contact both of you regarding the termination process. Mike started to protest, but one look at Patricia's face changed his mind. As security led him out, still buttoning his shirt, Amanda followed, her posture regal. She didn't spare him a single glance. I stayed just long enough to deliver the final blow. The divorce papers are being filed today, Sarah. Don't bother coming home. The locks are already changed, and your things will be delivered to your mother's house. Oh, and about your secret Boston plans. I smiled. I'd check your email if I were you. Your future employers might have some concerns about hiring someone who sleeps their way up the corporate ladder. Sarah's facade finally cracked. You can't do this to me, she whispered, clutching the sheet tighter. We need to talk about this, about the baby. The baby you were planning to pass off as mine while you moved to Boston with Mike? I kept my voice steady. I read everything, Sarah. Every email, every message. Tell me, were you going to wait until the transfer was official to serve me papers? Or were you planning to disappear one day while I was at work? It wasn't like that, she protested, tears starting to fall. I was going to tell you. Like you told Mike about the pregnancy? The look of devastation on her face was almost worth the past months of deception. Almost. Funny how you kept that from him too. Were you afraid he wouldn't leave his family if he knew? Or were you planning to use it as leverage later? Patricia, who had been quietly directing her team to document the scene, stepped forward. Ms. Mitchell, you have 30 minutes to collect your personal items from the office. Security will supervise. Any attempt to access company systems or remove company property will result in immediate legal action. I turned to leave, but Sarah's voice stopped me. Jason, please. You can't just throw away 7 years of marriage like this. We can work through this, go to counseling, start over. I looked at her one last time. This woman I had loved and trusted, now reduced to clutching hotel sheets while pleading for a second chance she didn't deserve. You threw away our marriage the moment you decided to fuck your boss. The only difference is, I'm making it official. In the hallway, Amanda was waiting with her PI, who had documented everything. The trust fund transfer just cleared, she said quietly. Mike won't have access to a penny of it. We rode down together in silence. In the lobby, I spotted Mike being escorted out by security, his face ashen as he stared at his phone. I'd made sure the evidence of his embezzlement reached not just Patricia, but the board of directors and the company's legal team as well. Later that evening, my phone exploded with messages. Sarah's family, our friends, even her affair partner, all demanding explanations or begging for reconciliation. I ignored them all, sitting instead in my home office, sharing a bottle of scotch with Richard as he finalized the divorce filing. The pregnancy complicates things, he admitted. But with the evidence of adultery and their planned deception, she won't get nearly what she hoped. The house is safe. It was yours before the marriage. The joint accounts. He smiled. Well, it's unfortunate they were empty when she checked. I transferred everything that morning, right after my bank visit. Not to my personal account. I wasn't stupid. The money was safely held in a trust, ready to be fought over in court. Let her explain to a judge why she deserved half while living off her unemployed lover's dwindling savings. My phone buzzed again. A text from Amanda. Mike's mother just called. Apparently, he tried using their beach house as collateral for a loan. She's furious. Called their family lawyer. I poured another scotch, thinking about the dominoes we'd set in motion. Sarah's reputation in the industry was ruined. I'd made sure their emails reached several key contacts at other firms. Mike's career was over, his family fortune locked away by a wife who'd learned of his betrayal weeks ago and planned accordingly. Their dream of a fresh start in Boston had gone up in flames, along with the comfortable lives they'd taken for granted. The phone buzzed one final time. Sarah, I never meant to hurt you. I do love you. Please don't do this. I blocked her number without responding. Let her figure out her next move without me. Preferably before her baby bump became obvious and Mike's remaining friends started doing the math. I had my own future to plan, and it didn't include watching her try to spin this nightmare into something forgivable. Richard raised his glass. To new beginnings? I thought about Sarah's face in that hotel room, the moment she realized her carefully constructed lies had finally caught up with her. To consequences, I replied and drank. Thank you for listening the story to the end. Write your thoughts about it in the comments and do not forget to subscribe. See you in the next videos. Bye.